There you go. Now we're here.
Well, okay. If you just came in and you didn't sign in, I'll just say there's one sheet that has pre-registrations on. If you're just showing up, we appreciate it. Just put your name on the other one. So I would like to make a special welcome to everyone here today and who is here in person, and to all who are turning in virtually. This is being recorded, and there are people who are listening in virtually, just so everybody knows. We are celebrating the library's 100th anniversary this year. For those of you who are here, we invite you to pick up a copy of The Town of Leesburg Celebrates Thomas Balch Library's 100 Years. For those attending virtually who may wish a copy, please email a request to us with your mailing address. The Balch column, as well as all back issues, listing programs, classes, tours, and exhibits, is available on our website. Events are posted on our website calendar and on social media. The water fountain is out the door to your left. The restrooms are straight back. At this time, if you have any kind of electronic device, if you could please turn off or mute, that would be appreciated by everyone who's here. Masks are not required. If anyone wishes one, you may find them on the back table. Help yourself. Today's presentation provides an overview of historic maps, aerial photography, and other resources that may be of use in your research of Loudoun County places and ancestry. Our guest speaker today is Kristin Brown, Director of the Loudoun County Office of Mapping and Geographic Information. Kristin holds a master's degree in geography from Murray State University in Western Kentucky, and she's been with Loudoun County since 1998 and has an interest in historic maps and research. So, welcome.
Thank you. Hi, good morning. I have got a presentation that is part PowerPoint, part jumping to PDFs, and part online, so I apologize in advance for any whiplash. I've got this broken out into 3 sections. I'm going to talk about the Office of Mapping and just show you some of our resources you can find on our site. I am going to jump out and show some of the other historic resources that are not available at loudoun.gov that might be of use. And then I'm going to wrap up by showing you how you can sign up for an Arcgis online account. That is the software we use in the county. You can sign up for a free public account. I have created a map with some of the resources I'm going to show you, and you're welcome to save that and work from that on your own. I came into this hoping, my expectation is that many of you know just about everything I'm going to present. I'm hoping there's at least 1 or 2 things that won't be familiar and will be a nice surprise. Let's see. Well, there we go. So I am with the Office of Mapping and Geographic Information. Loudoun is unique in that we have a standalone mapping department. That is rare for local jurisdictions. If they have mapping folks, they're usually embedded in other departments. We have been using Esri mapping software since 1986, and we have been flying the county and creating aerial photography since 1979. And so I'm going to show you some of our aerial photographs. We're the home base for the county's distributed geographic information system. So we do a lot of different things in the mapping department, but there are mapping folks embedded in other departments elsewhere. And the last thing, it's a little bit of a point of pride. We have mapping, Esri mapping software license number 34. It's a little bit like having Microsoft Word number 34, so I like to brag about it, but we've been doing this for a very long time. So we have a nice back catalog of data. There we go. Some of the things we do in the mapping department, the big thing, and it's kind of the underpinnings of all of our data, are our land records division. We map all of the parcels in the county and keep those up to date. We assign all of the addresses. A lot of people think those come from the post office. Those actually come from us. We map and maintain road centerline, and we map and maintain and assign road names, including renaming roads at times. We also, out of this division, the county has an addressing ordinance and a road renaming ordinance. And so we administer those on behalf of the Board of Supervisors. I mentioned aerial photography. We have been flying since 1979. We transitioned to digital, from film to digital, about 2002. And so 2002 on, we have all of those online, and I'll show you how to access those. We also, however, have some of our earlier years. This shows the 1957. I had mentioned one of our, a former colleague came in the office one day and had his arm full of photographs that he had found in the trash and gave them to us, and we scanned them all and turned it into an aerial photo for the 57s. We also have the 1937s, and so I will show you how to get to those. And then another core thing we do out of the Office of Mapping is we map base maps. So each year we fly the county. We then create planimetric features and topographic features from that data. So planimetrics are anything that you can see and outline on your aerial photography. So that could be building footprints or road casings or fence lines, things like that. And then we also capture topographic 4-foot contours from that. We now are in a cycle of, we update about a third of the county's planimetric data every year. And so every 3 years, we're now in a cycle of remapping the entire county. So I'm going to show you 3 different places online you can access our interactive maps, which we make a lot of, our other data, and then a shortcut to where we have put some of our historic maps.
Cool. I think I got them all. No, I don't know if she was.
So first of all, and I'm going to hop out and give you a demo of this, is WebLogis. This is our legacy online mapping system. See if I can find it. Here we go. So WebLogis, and it's loudoun.gov/WebLogis, is the #1 place to go to find all of our data, historic images, things like that, and to start with your research. We have on here, you can go in and search by address. If you have a parcel number, you can look that up. Let's see, this is it 208, I think, Market?
West Market.
West Market, okay. So if you just start typing, it should populate.
I mean, they get the thing, so.
From here, you can use the Identify tool, and you can go in, and this will connect you to the Commissioner of Revenue's parcel assessment database.
Yeah.
And so that is a handy place to go to start your research.
I'm afraid if I plug these.
It includes values, recent sales. If you're lucky, we have the date of the building.
Good. So.
Now, in this case, we do have 1922. As the buildings get older, you'll start to see like 1900, just as a generic number. A lot of the, as you know, it's hard to pin down the exact date of some of the older buildings. This is a project I'm hoping to do in the future, though, is to see if we can't improve some of this data. Oops. From here, you can also go in, and there is a aerial imagery tool. This is one of the places you can get to our aerial photography. And so if you click on it, it will open a new window. Right now, we have the 2022 loaded. The 2023 should be to us in about another month and a half. You can go back to, as I mentioned, 2002 is the earliest. We also have our 57 on here. And then the 1937 was flown. It's not at the same scale as the rest of the data, so you can't zoom in quite as closely on this. And I think the 37 we also found just stashed in the county, and we scanned these. This isn't perfect. If you go through, you'll see places where there's clearly edge of photographs, but it's still very useful to have. We also have on here access to pictometry, which is very useful for, let's see, let me click that in here. Pictometry is the oblique photography of the county. I think let's see, how far back do we have that? 2006. So you can go in and look at a site and spin around. There we go. And so that can be a handy resource. We use this quite a bit.
I tried to print from that and I couldn't do that yesterday or Tuesday. So
Printing
is there a printing capacity from BigCom?
No, there's not. So what I usually do is just grab a screenshot using Microsoft.
Excuse me. You have access to the focus. It went out of focus earlier in the 3.
Oh.
Clear right now.
I do not, but thank you.
I jumped at it earlier and it sharpened up and now it's.
It is very fuzzy, isn't it?
Yes. It should be sharper than that. Somebody can look.
Oh, that's
better. Oh, better? Go back one more, I think. Is that, I don't have my glasses on. Is that better?
It's better, but it was better. If you go back, yeah, a little left. You tell me when. How come it keeps jumping back to the middle?
Better than it was.
She does apply.
I didn't actually change anything in between while you were talking, so something's happening.
Oh, really?
Yeah. That looks good.
You think it's adjusting on its own?
It might be because we're changing the website and stuff. I don't know.
So if it starts to go fuzzy again, we can always
doing
make
it now. I can see it.
It is, isn't it?
And I'm not touching it.
Do you think the television would be a better option, or the screen behind this one?
I don't know that I can get it just to do what you're presenting about.
It's getting worse.
Can you, would you mind just clicking to a different tab for a minute, just to see if it's because it's trying to adjust, no, like not Weblo, just for just a minute.
Like that.
A different website, yeah. Well,
PowerPoint.
your PowerPoint is good. Let's try it, get it from there, and then see if it's. That's the other direction.
Yeah, maybe Weblo, this is the app exchange. The packet exchange is making it jump around.
So you can sharpen it up, but it may go fuzzy again. I apologize for that. We are getting a new one soon.
Oh, okay. Clark, would it be better to switch to the display behind? No. Okay.
Unfortunately, we can't do this.
Got you.
Sorry.
Okay.
The best thing would be for everyone to just adjust it.
To be the focus person. Okay. Thank you. Let's see. Okay, so, oh, it is again, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's gonna keep doing it, so that's what she's saying. It's a little predictor.
Okay.
We're gonna stay like that.
Okay. Well, when it starts to go fuzzy, we'll just pause and focus it and carry on then. So a second link I wanted to give you is loudoun.gov/history maps. This is where if we have anything that is historic, we've started linking to it on this map gallery. This is fairly new. I know there's at least one thing out there, though, that is missing, and so we will update it going forward. A couple of interactives I wanted to show you from here that I am either very proud of or I think has good data. First are the cemetery. Yes, sir.
You said Loudoun.gov. I think whatever, you didn't say anything after, you just said history maps, but I don't know any of this, so I'm just looking at that and saying that's not what I'm looking at.
So loudoun.gov is the friendly URL.
Yeah.
And so anytime we can just give you that, you can just type that
Just
in.
type it into a search thing.
Yes, but I'm also going to show you from how to reach this from our master website called the GeoHub. And so that will be a follow-up to this. But yes, if you just type in loudoun.gov/history maps, it'll take you here. There we go. So first of all, I want to show you the cemeteries and burial grounds. The board several years ago directed staff to go out and map as many of these as we could. We had a lot of good data already, Mr. Winsaffer, and I've spent a lot of time out in the field going out and capturing points for cemeteries. We put together a research ones. This included doing deed research. From this site, you can, we do on the splash page note that cemeteries on private property, Virginia does restrict access to those. So there's certain guidelines to follow. So we have that information as well as a click through to make sure you've read that. We have classified them on this particular map by the active cemeteries, the inactive ones, and the ones we know that have been disturbed or removed. You can, from here, go in and search for, Lynn, can you give me the name of the cemetery I should try to pull up?
About Lyon.
L-Y?
Lyon.
There's two of those.
There we go. So Ryan and Arcola. And so as much information as we get attached to this, we have. And so this shows 21 graves of family cemetery and inactive. Now, we also have a companion story map. And so story maps are they're like online PowerPoint mapping presentations to give you more information about a topic. We also put together a story map of the cemeteries that includes both a little bit more information about the research project that we undertook to map these, how these were identified, challenges. And then we have a contact form we have put out there so that occasionally folks will call us and say, you're missing a cemetery. And so from here, they can fill out this form, attach photographs, find the approximate location on the map and send it in to us. And we found a number of cemeteries we weren't aware of that were out there we were able to capture. Not really a cautionary note, but some of these we mapped by going back to the original deeds, or we went out in the field and we found them and we had permission and we captured the map, captured them in our GIS. But as you zoom in, we've mapped them the best that we could, but obviously parcels are subdivided. And so you can zoom in very closely, but the cemetery may not be on the right side of the parcel line. And so that's just something that we caution folks about, is to make sure that you can zoom in very closely, but maybe you shouldn't in some cases. So that is an interactive map. I also wanted to show you the original land grants of Loudoun County, Virginia. This was actually Winsaffer's research. What is interesting about this particular map, and it shows the original land grants back to 1709, as you look at the modern parcels, it is fascinating how many of our current parcel lines still line up with those original land grants. And so here's a good example of that. And from any of these maps, you can go in and turn on imagery as the background along with road names. And there are other options as well. And then lastly, I wanted to show you, this is actually a story map that was just released a couple of months ago that our team put together that I was quite proud of. It's just another way that GIS can be used to showcase historic information. And so there was a presentation that Donna Bohannon and Lori Kimball did at the Farm Museum right before COVID that I attended. And so we took their presentation and turned it into an interactive story map. This shows locations mentioned from the Eads, Ewing, and Noakes families of eastern Loudoun County. We also have included, and I don't think it's going to broadcast if I hit it, but Balch was kind enough to let us integrate Ms. Carrie Noakes' oral interview from 2002, I think. And so you can go through and listen to clips, and then you can listen to the whole thing at the end. And so this, I did share the friendly URL for this. You can research, you can access, any of our historic maps or any of our data from our GeoHub. That is another friendly URL. This shows, we have all of our interactive maps linked from here, and we also have all of our geographic data. And so if you want to look for something like, I'm actually going to type in cemeteries. You start typing that in, it will link you to the application, to the story map, and also just to the data set itself. And from there, you can go in and you can download that. You can also look at the table behind. Make sure I'm hitting the right. Here we go. All of the attributes that are attached to each of these points. And so our parcel data, our addresses, anything like that, you can access from here.
Can I ask a question about your attribute?
Please.
I saw your field names up top. Does it show just the field name, or is that the alias itself? Sorry.
I think it is just the field name. Let's see. I have already hit the point of having too many tabs open, so let me go right back to this. No, it's a good question. So those are the actual attribute names, not the aliases.
Okay.
How are you finding the
If there is an alias, we would have included that in there. We don't typically have a separate field name, so we try to have the real attribute names be something that makes sense. Oh, and actually there is one other, I think, useful interactive I wanted to show you that I don't actually have linked from here, but it occurred to me on the drive over. That is residential communities. So what this interactive is, it's a map of all of the neighborhoods in the county, so primarily subdivisions. And so if you click on this one, it is Ashburn Village. You can search by address. You can also, though, filter by type. And so you can start searching in here, and it will take you to that community. And if you click on that information, it tells you things such as how many houses were there, how many are remaining to be built, that sort of thing. But in addition, in this interactive, we have an other places layer. Now, this is a work in progress. I just wanted a way to show all of the other place names that are in the community. And so you can go through here and search on these places, and it will take you, it's just simply a point. There's not additional information, but it is useful if you run across in your research a place name that maybe is not familiar. This is a go-to we send people to when they run across a name they're not familiar with. So I just wanted to mention that. Okay, historic maps. I am certain that many of these are familiar to most of you. Let's see. The first is the Yardley Taylor Map, which is one of our, well, it will not let me. All right. We'll get to it another way. You go back to the history maps link. And from here, we have a link to our Flickr gallery, and we have all of those maps here. So the Yardley Taylor map, Yardley Taylor was, he lived in, I think, Lincoln or Goose Creek at the time. He did one of the, not the earliest maps of Loudoun County, but one of the most accurate and one of the more detailed. I actually have a hard copy of this on the back table. If for those of you who have not seen this in person, it's not a full-size one. The originals are quite large. There are a number of these maps, and he made changes to them as over time. I think he started, and when, please correct me if I throw out the wrong date. This one is dated 1853. I think he may have started in 1852 and carried on through maybe 57. These were published by Pearsall Smith in Philadelphia. And so you do see these pop up on places like eBay. This particular map, someone came into the mapping office and donated it. And so we had it photographed and scanned. You can download any of these maps. You can also look at a much larger version. Over on the right side, there is a download this photo link.
What is the river on my left?
Shenandoah.
It is?
Yes.
So this, where that is showing up quite dark on there.
Does Loudoun go to the Shenandoah, or does Loudoun not
The ridge, the Shenandoah River, and
Yeah, so this is the Shenandoah.
The mountain top, wouldn't it?
yeah, that's the ridge.
This is the ridge of the mountain. And if you, let me zoom in a little bit.
Ridge, Clark was part of that.
You go to the largest version we have scanned.
West Virginia.
Yeah, so Jefferson County, right here is the label. And here is the county boundary along the ridge. And so we do have hard copies of this over in the mapping office for cost of distribution. I know the Balch has at least one copy, if not several copies, as well as a reproduction that I think was done by Loudoun Times Mirror that is also in circulation. So this is a pretty easy map to get a hold of. Another map that I think doesn't get a lot of distribution is the rural delivery routes from 1926. This was a map that the original is actually in the Library of Virginia. Our former director paid to have this scanned, and so we also have a copy of this available in the office. Or you're welcome to download it off of Flickr. And I have a hard copy of this as well if you'd like to take a look at it. What is nice about this particular map is it does show a lot of the place names as well as names of some of the streams that are out there, which often pop up in discussions or in deeds. So this is handy for that kind of research. Let's see. I was talking to Les right before earlier this morning. What is interesting about this map is this shows the current route numbers. This is a map that was started by what is now VDOT. It was the Transportation Department for the Commonwealth of Virginia in 1932, and they updated it through 1937. The original of this particular map is actually over in the Clerk of the Court archives. They had a hard copy of it, and so I photographed this and pieced it together in Photoshop. And so it's quite tattered, which is reflected in this interactive, in this scan of it, but we have a copy of this, which is interesting. So this particular map does show the current route numbers. So this shows Route 7. There is another map, and let me see if I can find that. I do have this, and I have a hard copy of this. Virginia, this was from 1932, and this map shows see if I can zoom in, apologies. So this shows Route 7 as Route 54. And so this was before the current route numbering. Now, I will say something that's a little bit frustrating about Virginia is they will recycle route numbers. And so we will run across roads in Virginia that are abandoned or discontinued. And those things mean two different things. And so there may still be a public right-of-way on a road where maintenance has been discontinued that actually hasn't officially been abandoned. What makes it more complicated when you're doing your research is Virginia swapped those definitions in the 50s to 60s, so they meant opposite things before that date. But when you run across in your research an old route number, if the road was discontinued and abandoned, they may have reused that route number elsewhere in the county. This is a handy map to go back to see if you have your old route numbers on it, along with the blue one that I just showed you. This also, though, is one of the few maps from Virginia that showed the original road names in the county. So in the late 80s to early 90s, the county undertook a rural readdressing program where they set out to get rid of the rural route numbers and to assign 5-digit addresses to all premises in the county. And before they did that, they had to officially make sure every road had a name. A lot of roads were known by more than one name. And so this was from what I understand, quite a bit of contention at the time of actually identifying what a name should be. We, as our outcome of this, have a pretty robust road renaming ordinance and road naming ordinance. And so we can't have duplicate names, we can't have sound-alikes. And so some of the names they couldn't be used, even if it was a name that had been known for a long time. Mr. Eugene Scheel has got a wonderful resource, and it's actually on that wall right there from 1972, where he had researched a number of resources, including this map, and he's incorporated those names into that map. And I have a copy of that in my office, and it's one of my most referenced resources to go back to find old names.
Is Gene still around?
I actually just emailed him yesterday to ask if this map is still available on his website, Loudoun History. And he responded, and he said this particular map isn't, but he does have an updated version from 1990 that is available for sale. So yes.
That's a good question.
Please.
Since you brought up Mr. Shield and names, I was thinking about that as I was reading this page the other day, looking at some of the indigenous burial mounds discussion that was happening years back. Is there an effort, or is there a resource that has indigenous names, decolonized names on the map?
That is a good question. I would have to talk to some colleagues in the county and see if I am not familiar with that particular effort, but that would be interesting. I know Mr. Scheel has a map that he's put together.
What was the year of this map again?
I believe that is 1972.
Okay.
If you look at the notes, it references 1972 is the date that I could find.
Thank you.
And I do know from comparing these two maps that a lot of these names are included on that map. So. Oh, and a last map I wanted to show you, which may be one of the few things I'm showing that is unfamiliar to some of you. I know Wynn Sacker was not familiar with this particular one, so I take that as a kind of a win on my part. It is, let's see, this map. And there's a copy pinned to this wall. This was found in the board meeting minutes from 1922. My understanding is they think that the county surveyor at the time is actually the one who put this map together. Again, this predates the modern route numbers. And so it's just very useful to go in and just look at both place names as well as what roads formerly may have been known by. And so we have a scan of this as well if you're interested in a hard copy at the mapping department, or you're welcome to look at the hard copy in the back. It's a lovely map. Someone did trace 15 in red. Let's see. So a couple of other mapping resources I had mentioned. Let's see if it'll let me click on this. I mentioned loudounhistory.org. That is Mr. Shield's site. There we go. And so he does have links to several of the maps that he's either researched or made through here. I also find as a really useful resource, USGS has put, I'm sorry, I do this every time. Here we go. USGS has scanned all of their topographic maps, their entire back catalog, and put those online. It's something like 177,000 maps. This is a wonderful resource. Let's see. So you search on any place name, you click on the map, and then at the bottom, it will bring up the scales and the scans of all of the maps that they have in their catalog. These earlier maps tend to be of like 1 to 250,000. I'm sorry, is that, oh no, that is 1 to, what does that say? 125,000. So broader areas, a little less detailed, but still quite interesting. I mostly use this for the modern, from the 1940s on for the quad maps. And so you can find all of those in here. Again, very useful for finding stream names. We get called a lot for what is the name of this creek, and so we've referred to the USGS maps quite a bit. You can adjust the transparency on here so you can stack up a number of these. Just a really great resource. Library of Congress also has a fair number of copies of scans of Loudoun County. A lot of those are Civil War era maps, but it is a good place to go and find other maps. And then I just recently found this Old Maps Online. They are, for the most part, it's copies of other things you find in USGS or Library of Congress, but I did see that they have, they pulled in like a couple of maps from Harvard that I was not familiar with, and so that's another resource. Let's see. And so I mentioned at the beginning, you can create a free public account using Arcgis Online. And what is nice about that is any of the data layers that you find in WebLogis, any of the historic images, you can actually create your own account, pull that data into it and save that as a map. And so I have a personal account. I actually do some research on that. Genealogical research for my mom, that kind of thing. If you go to the GeoHub, let me close some of these tabs, I apologize. There is a link up in the top to a public account, and you can go through here and create an account. You just need your name and email address basically to set one up. Once you have set that up, it will take you to arcgis.com. And I have set up a personal account where I have logged in here to myself. From here, you can search for any of our data layers. And so I've created an interactive map, kind of as a base map, that shows a lot of the data layers that we've talked about today. If you search on Loudoun Historic Resources, you can find this map and open it up and then save your own copy of this. So this has, in addition, let's see, let me get to the contents. I have in here the original land grants. Those historic locations and communities that I had mentioned in the residential communities map, as well as some other resources such as historic schools that are in the county, you can access that through this layer. we have scanned Yardley Taylor and georeferenced it. And so you can draw that on top of our base map. Change the transparency on this and bring the aerial photography up behind it. We have a resource called LIDAR. LIDAR is, it's basically sending light pulses down on the surface of the earth and mapping the exact elevation. And so you can get as detailed as seeing building heights. And so the LIDAR is in here. It is handy for going in and finding, we found some historic mill locations that we knew were on a map, and you can actually go in and see where the work took place. Here's what that looked like. It's really pretty interesting. We have a grant for updated LIDAR, and I hope to receive that this summer. And so we'll be loading the 2022 LIDAR online as a resource as soon as we can. I've included the 2022 imagery in here. There we go. And so you can still kind of see the topography underneath it. The last thing in here that this actually hasn't officially been released, but it is out there, and I thought it'd be a useful resource for this group. The 1979 imagery. As I mentioned, we've been flying the county since 1979. Our aerial photography contractor called and said, hey, we have all this film. We are cleaning out our archives. Do you want it? So we paid them to scan our 79s and I believe our 89s. And so we turned this into a georeference layer in-house. It is not perfect, as you can see. You can easily pick out the edge of the photographs in places. But it is a really useful resource to have out there. And so that is loaded in this interactive map. You can customize this by adding your own map notes layer. And this just lets you go in and put in, draw boundaries. Create your own map layer. And so as you're doing your research, you can drop pins in here. And then once you're ready with it, you can just save it to your new public account that you've created and work from that. And so my plan is to keep this updated as we have new layers that are created, and I can include that here. The 1979, we actually have a draft viewer. It's currently not accessible from the GeoHub, but when I get back to the office, I will ask that to be included so you can go in and search on that. And again, this is just a really fascinating, here's downtown Ashford from 1979. As you can see, we did a better job in some places than others. We don't quite have the software to do this justice, but it's still a really useful layer. And I think that covers everything. I mentioned earlier to when I had a technology issue this morning and lost some of my notes, but I think I've touched on everything I wanted to. Are there any questions? Yeah.
I'm interested in the location of the original lime mines in the lime kilns.
Okay. I don't
know about locating those.
I'm trying to remember if we have anything mapped. That it rings a bell, but I'm sorry, I can't remember. I'm not recalling exactly from where. I would have to look into that. If I could get your name, I can look into that and see what I can find. When are you familiar with any mapping resource or less that shows the?
The only thing I would say is the map that they did about the soil maps that had the stones and put out the soil.
Geological
map.
Well, and I do know on the USGS maps, I found a couple of mines that are just marked on here. And so this would be a good resource for that too.
You were talking about how we converted from numbers to names. Route 733 was renamed Lime Kiln Road. So I have heard rumors that there were one or two lime kilns along it, hence the name.
Let's see if anything shows up on the, so this is the 44. So there's a mine, our limestone quarry. It's showing us 733.
Is that the same quarry that's still being utilized?
I don't know. Let's see if that is showing up.
You know, when Gene did his interviews, maybe when he talked to somebody, they would tell him about mine. I looked on his site.
I think that would be a great resource. I was going to suggest that map might actually be taking a look at too.
Thank you.
Actually, one thing sitting here staring at me, I forgot to mention, a colleague was cleaning out his office and he said, "Hey, do you want this 1985 Atlas of Loudoun County?" And I said, "Of course."
I started saying, I might have an earlier one.
Oh, really? I would be interested in seeing that. This has got the original road names, at least as the mapping company at the time believed them to be. And so this has been a really handy resource that
It used to be the standard car passenger.
And I remember when I started with the county in '98, they would bring by a stack every year up until they stopped quite producing those. But this is a really handy resource as well. Yes.
As someone new in the area, and I'm driving around, seeing communities and developments named after farms or established homes. Sometimes you can see there actually is the original home there, or at least remnants of it. And I'm curious as to where to find those original homes, like Oak Lawn or Belmead Farms. There had to be a farm there. I would assume if it's called Belmead Farms.
Right.
So where would I start looking at that?
So,
because I have no idea how old the farms are.
Right. So I think for some of those, I know like for Leesburg, there's a good guide to historic homes in downtown Leesburg, but I don't know if we have something out there that's like a master document to go through for the whole county. Yardley Taylor's map has a lot of those original larger houses noted on there. The understanding is that he asked $1 to landowners to put the house on the map. I don't know if that was true or not. The Heritage Farm Museum actually has a book from, I think it's from the 30s or 40s, that was a farm directory. And so we have a scan of that map, but it's not anything we've turned into something digital. That was likely something that people paid to participate in at the time. I don't know that it was a comprehensive, but that would be a good resource to check with the Farm Museum.
Oh, the one that's in Sterling.
Yes.
Got a copy of that as well.
Oh, Balch does? Okay.
Sorry?
Well, so here has a copy of that. Lori had let me borrow that, and then I had to return it before we were quite finished with it. So I need to.
What about the postal road, the postal maps? Do that have names on it?
That's a good question. Oops. So of the homes, right?
Yeah, those are just communities.
I think this shows Outlands, but I think it's showing Outlands the community and not the house. So I think this is just the communities.
Material to the answer. Your neighborhood map, does it have an attribute that describes the date that neighborhood was created?
It doesn't. I would love to have that. That is
where I would start too.
That is just really the points. And that was just something we kind of had pulled together to have something out there for those names. But that is on my to-do list as well.
Sometimes those communities are named after something. That's
exactly.
Is there a attribute on the Webeloges that has historic sites, the ones that are in DHR's 53- number?
We don't have that as a public map, no. There's a public layer that you can get to.
Would DHR be a source for her to find out about the farm?
Oh, that's a good point. So, because they have that online browser, right, that you can go in and look through. That would be a good resource.
What does that stand for?
Department of Historic Resources. Mhm.
I noticed on one of the flybys, one tab meant Loudoun history,
Mhm.
and another selection was cities and towns. What would be typical content of that for a town? Something about Loudoun history, and for a town, what would be the content?
Was that on Mr. Shield's site?
That's probably a newspaper article Gene wrote.
Somewhere there was a tab.
Oh, towns and
for
places?
cities and towns and places. Now, what would be the like Wilmot, what would be the typical content for that? History and any photographs available.
And I think in some places he has maps
So that's
inserted in here too.
pictures.
And then I think there's some Washington Post articles linked in here as well.
Okay.
Let's see.
Yeah, most of this stuff seems more akin to an ethnography
Oh,
or history.
could you back up to Round Hill? There was just a few lines above, because I have a collection of old photographs from Round Hill from 1916. And might be worth something. It shows the old train station, passengers at the train station.
It's an old postcard.
That's about it, huh? I might want to forward those. Looks like something in Thomas.
There's one other.
If you wanted to create something, you could pull from all these sources for the communities, not so much for the farms, but hidden in that article, if there's a major farm, you might find it.
So this would be a good place to scan.
It's a shame.
I see it's gone.
In Louisiana, it's great. National maps of plantations all down the Mississippi. That would be the easiest thing.
Somebody else has already done it.
So I do, as I mentioned, I have a copy of Yardley, the 22 map roadmap, the 32 roadmap, and the 32 to 37, as well as Mr. Shield's map is on the wall if you'd like to have a look at that. If you have any other questions, I would love to. I learn more from these sessions than I think I often depart or offer, so I would love to stay and chat a little bit.
How big is your staff complement?
I'm sorry?
How big is your staff complement in your job?
There are 26 of us.
26.
Mhm. Yeah, there's the land records division. There's development and analysis, and so they do a lot of the custom interactives, manage the base map, contract, do custom analysis, and then we have a group that is kind of the heart. It keeps the GIS up and running, and then a public information, a small program. We're over in the County Government Center, right in downtown Leesburg.
Are there any questions from online? Question?
No, I just got the message that says Pat Duncan says thank you.
Tell Pat thank you. Well, thank you all so much for coming. I appreciate it.